to look back at the last Forge FC contest.
Simply stunning stuff! And finally, their goal!
Here is Match and Review.
My word, what a rocket!
With Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network.
Hello, Forge fans. It's the Forge Audio Network. I'm Anthony Urciuoli. This is live instance match in review. The final whistle has just gone. Forge FC, Cavalry FC, with plenty on the line, a playoff-like atmosphere. Playoff-like doesn't even do it. I mean, this was, for all intents and purposes, a playoff game, right? And the play on the field was indicative of that. Very similar to the match Forge played against Atletico Ottawa a couple of weekends ago, in which that match also ended scoreless. So some similarities in those two matches, both in the circumstances around them, what was at stake, and the final result. So 0-0 the final. Forge and Cavalry at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. Another draw for Forge on their home turf. Crowd was hot, despite the weather being not the greatest. At one point, someone thought it was snowing. That's the rain. It was a misty rain that did kind of look a little bit like snow, but the fans weathered it. They removed a lot of the tarps from the bleachers, so to make room for more fans. So a hot crowd ready for this one, and they were treated to what was intense. I mean, there was just not a lot there for either side. Not a lot of space. And when there was, it closed quickly. I mean, I can't even count the number of times it looked like one side or the other was going to be able to break through and get at least a dangerous scoring opportunity, only for that space to just completely disappear and for those gaps to diminish. And there just was not a lot of room for either club in this one. And as a result, you saw a lot of chances from distance, a lot of crosses. Ultimately, though, this match ends in a scoreless draw. Let's take you back now, because a lot of interesting storylines within the match. We'll take a look at the stats. We'll revisit the three keys, and then we'll take a look at the table, because every time you hear the final whistle in a match in the CPL, you know the table is going to look completely different than it did going into the match, because that's just the nature of this league, with things being as tight as they are. Okay. Forge FC on their home turf, wearing the gray-black kits up against Cavalry's red and white. Thank goodness Forge did not go with orange against red. That would have been a nightmare for us colorblind folk, especially. And I always talk about the lack of light kits in this league, but okay, this one worked. It was very easy to distinguish who was who with the red versus the gray and black starting lineup. Some intrigue here as well. On the back end, again, not a lot of surprises for Forge, at least from the back end. Tristan Henry in goal, Malik Oluwabi-Bellewu and Razard Rama, your fullbacks, Dominic Samuel and Mandrakar James in the middle of that back line. Kyle Becker, Alex Ashinyodi-Janssen, and Kadeem Kane in the midfield. Now, I don't know for certain, because I'm obviously not there for the post-match media conference, because I'm talking to you, but my assumption is Kadeem Kane, very capable, make no mistake about it. What I'm about to say is not a slight against Kane in any way, shape, or form, but your U21 minutes with Kane being a U21 player, at this stage, this is where teams are now really starting to ramp up their under 21 minutes, because there's a mandate. You have to reach 2,000 for the year. If you don't get to qualify for the postseason. That is a very stiff penalty. So you have to meet those 2,000 minutes. Kwesi Poku was a guy that Forge had been reliant on, in the fact that he is probably their most, I guess, let's just say, established U21, a guy that has proven he can handle big minutes and big moments. And Kadeem Kane is easily, we've been talking about him all year. The faith that the coaching staff has in him. I don't want to make this seem like that's the only reason he got the start, because if he wasn't capable, he would not be in the starting lineup. You can be assured, especially not in a match with this magnitude and with the just all the meaning behind this match. But U21 minutes, very important this time of year. Forge, I think they had around like 700 to make up still or something. So they're running out of time, and I'm sure they'll meet it. But Kadeem Kane, a guy that gets the nod in the midfield in this one. Up front for Forge, Rubens Pacias, Taron Campbell, and Benny Batty Banga, the same three attackers that we saw in Forge's win at Vancouver. On the other side, a very formidable Cavalry side coming out with a 3-4-2-1 formation, overloading that midfield, which is a strength of Forge FC's. And interesting to note from both sides, some key players not in the starting lineups or the lineups at all. Ali Musi, not in the starting lineup for Cavalry. He was a sub. For Forge, though, both Borges and Chouanier not even on the bench in this one. Chouanier, we know it's been a really tough year for him dealing with a lower body injury. Tristan Borges, though, left out of the lineup from what I understand, for what I was told. Again, I don't have confirmation. I'm not at that media conference, but it's my understanding Borges being left out of the lineup was not injury related, just a decision by the coaches. He was initially listed as a sub, but was replaced with Jordan Hamilton before kickoff. Opening kickoff, intensity immediately apparent that this was not going to be just any other match. Besides the fact that you have two arch rivals going head to head, what's at stake. Cavalry trying to hang on to first place, Forge trying to close some ground and at least contend for top spot. Now, in order to do that, they didn't have to, but they nearly had to. It was nearly a must-win match for them in terms of if they did want to be able to pass Cavalry and get into that top spot, they probably needed all 3 points in this one. And for Cavalry to go home empty, the hill is a little steeper for Forge after this match, but, and we will talk about the standings a little bit later, I get the importance of that top spot. I mean, you get CONCACAF, you get the award, the trophy for being the regular season champion. However, at the end of the day, this club, Forge FC, they are about championships, and the easiest path to the championship is, yes, first place. The second easiest path, second place. Forge wants to get in that top two. They want to at least finish in second place. It's virtually a bye, but it's even better than a bye week because you do play, one plays against two to start the playoffs. The winner goes directly to the final. The loser goes to the semifinal, and it gets another crack at getting to the final. So you want to get in that top two regardless. If it is Cavalry who finishes first, Forge, they want that second spot. It doesn't get them a trophy, but it makes that path to the final that much easier. You are handed a golden parachute, a lifeline. You're basically told you are allowed to lose a playoff game and still go to the final. It's a huge luxury to have. You want to get in that top two. And so a lot was at stake here. Early on, Cavalry has been the best team in the league this season. They're the most informed team. And they showed it early, right off the opening kickoff. This was a team that looked confident, that looked to be playing on the front foot. Forge defended well. But Cavalry dictated the first few minutes. Now, mind you, it was only the first few minutes. They had around 80% possession, which, again, it's only a few minutes in. That's fine. But I think the start was indicative of the fact that Cavalry is coming in with a lot of confidence. And just how evenly matched these two teams are, just from a personnel level, from a coaching level. Forge, they forced a turnover a few minutes in. All of a sudden, they carried play for the next few minutes. And it was that kind of game. Defensively, neither side was taking a ton of chances. They were playing discipline. They were maintaining their shape. They were making it as difficult as possible for their opponent to break them down. And both teams looked comfortable defending. They were willing to give up possession if they needed to. They just did not want to make that mistake defensively. And I thought, Malik Oluwabi-Bellewu he's such an intriguing player. We saw him play center back for the most part last year. He played a ton of minutes, was a huge, huge reason this team won the CPL title last year in his rookie year with Forge FC. He has the pedigree. He played, He comes out of a UK system, tons of talent, and a lot of his skill. He just doesn't get a lot of credit for it because we watched him play center back for an entire season. So you don't really get to see a true sense of the player's skill sometimes at that position. But what happened when Malik now plays left back, you saw the skill. Not only was he making a lot of players miss, he was winning a lot of ground duels, a lot of confidence in Malik on the dribble, delivering perfect crosses with his left foot. And he brought some intensity. He get that center back mentality to the fullback position. His duels, his challenges, intensity behind it, aggression behind it. He was really fun to watch in this one. And he's a guy that really stood out. Forge's first big chance, and I mentioned there was not much in the way of chances in the area, in the box. Forge's first big chance was an absolute howitzer from Badi Banga, but it was from distance. And he challenged Carducci, but it was from distance. And that's the kind of match it was. That was really all that was there for the taking. And he actually tested Carducci again from distance a few minutes later. And again, I'm not sure if Benny was, pushing the issue himself or was part of the game plan. But I just think it's a matter of you take what's given to you. And if those long shots are there and you're a player of the quality of Badi Banga, you take it. And there were a lot of instances in that first half where it looked like the officials, the referee, left his cards in the tunnel because there were some aggressive, some mean challenges out there. And yeah, no bookings until the first booking came in the 38th minute. Yellow came out. Jesse Daly from Cavalry went down in Forge's area. He tried to draw a foul after a collision with Kyle Becker, and he received a yellow card for simulation. And the crack production staff at Tim Hortons Field showed a video of water and a diving board on the big screen, which was a subtle but wonderful touch. Listen, that was the first half. Not a ton of chances either way. Ball possession, Cavalry in the lead there, 61% at half. But shot attempts, 4-3 in favor of Forge. Shots on target, 3-0 in favor of Forge FC. Did they come from dangerous areas? No, they were from distance. But listen, that's what was available. Cavalry, meanwhile, did not have a single shot on target despite their 61% possession. Again, I know I am certainly a stats guy, but I'm also aware of the nuance behind them. And possession is one of those nuanced stats in a match like this where teams aren't going to be as eager to recover possession. They're just concerned with not giving up high danger scoring chances. And as a result, if a team wants to possess the ball in non-dangerous areas, Forge, Cavalry, both clubs were going to be disciplined and just allow that to happen. Dangerous attacks in that first half, 25-19 in favor of Cavalry. And Tristan Henry, not a busy start to this one. Halftime, the rain, like it did, this happened the last home match for Forge FC. Halftime hits and the rain started coming down, but it was weird rain. I mentioned off the top that some people actually thought it was snow because it looked like snow when the rain kind of went through the lights, because it was more of a mist than a rain and it was all kind of going sideways. So not too tough on the players, not as bad as the torrential downpour they've played in at times at this field, but nevertheless, rain, wet, turf still a factor, as it always is in these matches. And the details are so important in matches of this caliber. There was a moment in the 55th minute. Forge was defending. Cavalry had the ball at half. And it really sums up the mentality of these two clubs in this one. Cavalry was at midfield. They were just kind of working the ball around, trying to build something. Forge's forwards were just trying to mark their men, trying to force, looking for, a bobble or a heavy touch so they could attack. And Forge's forwards, they lost their coverage a little bit. And again, this is just Cavalry at midfield passing the ball around, but the forwards lost their coverage a bit and they allowed a space in the midfield area, and it allowed Cavalry to build toward goal, and it eventually led to 2 consecutive corner kicks. Now, think of this. You had 2 corner kicks for Cavalry, both dangerous, and both came all because of just some miscommunication and who had who. There was a slight opening in that midfield that Cavalry took, and that could have been the difference in the game. That just one being 2 or 3 steps in either direction, if you're a player, can be the difference in games like this. And the reason it was a big moment is because Kyle Becker let his teammates know afterwards. He pointed, he gave some instruction, telling his guys where they need to be. He knows how important these finer details are in a match like this. 61st minute, Forge FC turns to their bench. Abubakar Sissoko in. Kadeem Kane out for Forge. Ali Musi makes his debut in the match in the 61st minute. Cavalry's most dangerous player in terms of chance. In fact, as far as the league is concerned, the most dangerous player just in terms of big chance creation. Ali Musi enters the game in the 61st minute, replaces Camargo. And as this half went on, I marked down specifically in the 68th minute, Forge really started making things uncomfortable for the Cavalry backline. A match this intense, fatigue starts setting in. You can be as mentally sharp as you want, but you're dealing with the elements, with the weather, and just the grind of, these aren't just regular minutes these guys are playing. These are hard minutes in a playoff-like game. Every touch, everything is just a little more difficult than it is in previous matches. And as a result, you saw some holes starting to form on both sides. For Forge, though, they made things uncomfortable for Cavalry's backline. Badi Banga using his creativity, and really kind of the Forge started playing a little bit more on the front foot and forcing the issue. Specifically, they made things difficult for Marco Carducci. I'm not sure what was going on. People were commenting in the press box. Even he was doing some weird things, making some easy plays look rather difficult, and some hairy moments for Cavalry. And those Carducci just not as sure-handed as he usually is. The veteran keeper, he made some questionable plays on the ball that led to some dangerous moments to Forge's benefit, but ultimately they were unable to capitalize. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this match was fairly consistent throughout in terms of just how difficult it was to find much real estate. There were openings here and there, like I said, but if you didn't take them right away or make the most of it, those windows just shut so quickly. 80th minute, notable substitution for Forge FC. Malika Lawabi-Bellu and Razard Rama come off. Not often you see 2 fullbacks come off in one sub. In Hojab Rapport, and that pushed Alex Ashniotti Janssen back to center back. Hojab Rapport taking up that holding midfield position. And then making his Forge FC debut, we talk about those U21 minutes, 17-year-old Kevin Tavernier makes his debut for Forge FC, coming on the field in the 80th minute. And then we saw, a few minutes later, Jordan Hamilton make an appearance. His first action in about 4 weeks, entering the game for Taryn Campbell as the number 9. Malcolm Duncan came in at left back. He replaced Dominic Samuel, who pushed out to replace Malik, who came off earlier. And I really, I wish I had more. I wish I had goals to tell you about, or some major big saves or scuffles or something. But this was a high-intensity playoff match that was largely contained to the middle of the field, exactly how things went when Forge played Ottawa a couple of weeks back. This was potentially a CPL final preview, and these two teams, they knew it. And, listen, these clubs, they know each other well. Cavalry, you don't always know which Cavalry you're going to get when they come to Tim Hortons Field. We've seen them, and, Forge coach Bobby Smirniotis has commented, and he did comment last year in the playoffs. Cavalry surprised them a little bit, where they'd come in and they'd play more of a, Cavalry plays similar to Forge. They are very front foot, attacking minded, possession, really, really leaning on you to make a mistake so they can capitalize. They come at you hard. The 90 minutes of hell, as Cavalry likes to call it. And that's part of their DNA. But a lot of times they would come to Tim Hortons Field and they'd play a little back, a little conservative, and they would rely on Forge making mistakes and beating Forge on the counter, letting Forge possess the ball as much as they wanted, essentially, and letting Forge come to them, waiting for a mistake, and then attacking on the counter. That was not the game plan in this one for Cavalry. This was the same Cavalry we have seen all season, regardless of who they play against. They're going to force the issue. And look, Forge fans, I know you don't want to hear it, especially any kind of compliments toward Cavalry, but they have been really good this year. And we saw why. They're a difficult out no matter where you play them, what time of year. They're always going to make things difficult. Very quality squad. And at the end of the day, Forge, Cavalry, they split points. Looking at the final stats after this one, ball possession, 61% in favor of Cavalry. Goal attempts, 12-5 for Forge. So Forge, they were taking their chances from distance if they needed to. There were a couple of opportunities from close-ish range, but not really from dangerous areas, just from some bad angles and whatnot. But 12-5 attempts in favor of Forge. Shots on target, 4-0 for Forge FC. So I just complimented Cavalry. Let's hand it to Forge. We know that they can attack, but we also know, and they don't always get credit for this, is how sharp they can be defensively. This is a club that has continually led the league not season after season, but we've seen it multiple times over the last 4+ years. Forge leading the league in clean sheets, goals against. Tristan Henry, the clean sheet leader, adds another to his list. Maybe no mistake that the two best goalkeepers this league has ever seen went head-to-head, and this match ended in a draw. Expected goals in this one, in case I didn't paint a strong enough picture of just how difficult it was to find space and how much of the play was contained to the midfield. Expected goals, according to our advanced stats, 0.51 for Forge, 0.51 for Cavalry. Both expected only a half a goal in this one, so 0-0 sounds about right. Neither team with overly dangerous scoring opportunities. Cavalry did finish with more dangerous attacks, unofficially 43-33. But at the end of the day, it didn't really amount to much. The other big piece, the standings. Because this time of year, this is ultimately what matters. Now, normally, I'm contradicting myself a little bit because I said after every whistle, we look at the standings and all of a sudden it looks totally different than when we came in. Not the case this time. We're seeing a little bit of consistency, at least in the top three. Cavalry in first place, 23 matches, 40 points. Forge tied for second, 36 points. So they're 4 points back of Cavalry for Forge anyway, just 4 matches remaining. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to make up that ground. But again, you never know in this league. I mean, Cavalry could lose 2 to 3 in a row, and that's just the way the season has gone for just being impossible to predict who gets hot when. And every time you think a team's kind of running away with it, all of a sudden they fall back. There is a club, though, between Cavalry and Forge, and it is a notable one, Pacific FC, also at 36 points, but they have a match in hand on Forge. Forge wants that number 2 spot. The beauty, though, Forge, by the way, now unbeaten in their last 5, but just 1 win in that span. So a lot of draws this season for Forge FC. They lead the league in draws, not just overall. But at home, Forge, in 12 matches this year, Forge has just 3 wins at home and 7 draws. So a lot of sharing points. Not ideal. It's fine against Cavalry. But going forward, they have 2 more home matches. You want to see 6 points. You need results on your home field in this league. You just need it because there are far too many markets and stadiums where it's just very difficult to play in. So, heading into the Final Four now, Forge will play Valor. And if you think Valor's out of it, I mean, they kind of are when you look at the standings. But you saw what they just did, winning at York handedly. So Valor is not an easy out. They appear to be very happy playing the role of spoiler, and they will be at home this upcoming Sunday. Excuse me, that's incorrect. Tomorrow would be upcoming Sunday. Next Sunday, September 17th, that's Forge's next match. It's a 2 p.m. match in Winnipeg at Investors Group Field against Valor. That is one, you, as good as Valor's been, you really need 3 points, because Forge's final 3 matches, you talk about 90 minutes of hell. How about 3 games of hell? It is a tough stretch. After they play Valor, and they can't look ahead, but they really need to take care of Valor because it gets difficult to end the season. But which is what you want as a coach. I mean, you might as well go into the postseason well-tested, battle-tested. After Valor, Forge is home to Pacific, which means Forge FC is in control of whether they finish in the top 2. They are in complete control. They will have to beat Pacific, though, in that match at home. They really need that match. That's Saturday, September 23rd. So 2 weeks from now at 7:00 at Tim Hortons Field. After that, a very tough match for Forge. The following Saturday, they travel to Wanderers Ground in Halifax, Nova Scotia. The most difficult stadium to play in. The Wanderers, by the way, are just 3 points behind Forge, and they have a match in hand. So they will be hungry, because while they're 3 points behind Forge, they're just 1 point ahead of York, who is in 6th place. After Halifax, Forge play the team that is just 1 point behind Halifax in the final playoff spot, Atletico Ottawa. So Forge will play Pacific, Halifax, Ottawa. 3 teams that will most likely be in must-win mode, and they're going to be hungry for all 3 points. So it does not get any easier, which is why Forge really need to take care of business against Valor next Sunday at Investors Group Field. Now, as I look onto the pitch right now, it is full of children and families, because it is families on the pitch. So you have some families on the pitch kicking the soccer ball around. A lot of people kicking balls at their siblings, as you should. And a big shout out, by the way, just a shout out to Forge FC and everyone involved with the Spark Summit. It began at 4:00 this afternoon. I was there. I attended. It was, this fantastic event, the second annual rendition of this event, which connects, inspires women in a professional setting in sports and entertainment. A very impressive panel this year, and just a lot of interesting conversation. Fascinating for me to listen to, as I'm sure it was for everyone in attendance. Fantastic time had by all. We had the panel, then it was a networking event afterwards, and everyone who attended was part of their registration, as they also got to watch the game from the club level, and they were treated to a playoff-like match between Cavalry and Forge. So shout out to everyone involved, and nothing's been confirmed, but based on the success of the previous 2, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say I look forward to the next one, because at this rate, it's become an annual thing, and it's a fantastic initiative, and it's a lot of fun to be at. So if you can make it this season, you'll probably have an opportunity next. Just keep your eyes peeled, and keep your not eels. I don't know who owns an eel. Your ears peeled as well, because the Forge Audio Network has you covered all week leading up to that match against Valor. Mackenzie has you covered with her Forge Daily. I mean, we know Kyle Becker has a show on our channel now. You can hear Behind the Beard. Bobby Smirniotis is a regular weekly on this channel, and you can hear me deliver the in-depth match day previews and the match interviews, and we will get you set for that huge match against Valor. By the way, keep an eye on the standings after this week is concluded, because there's still some matches to be played and some positioning to be had. But we'll fill you in just a few days from now in the match day preview. If you attended the match, I'm sure you enjoyed, but I hope you were able to stay dry. It looks like the rain has stopped. And until the match day preview, I will say enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you are a fan of the other kind of football, enjoy your NFL opening weekend. And we're going to talk to you very, very soon.
This has been Match in Review with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. For the latest on all things Forge FC, subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.